But when I say that Obama is the president of our country, blah, 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 they go, he doesn't know that's Biden. He doesn't know. So it's very hard to be sarcastic. When I interpose, because I'm not a Nikki fan and I'm not a Pelosi fan, and when I purposely interpose names, they said he didn't know Pelosi from Nikki, from Tricky Nikki. He didn't know. I interpose, and they make a big deal out of it. I said, no, I think they both stink. They have something in common. They both stink. And remember this, when I make a statement like that about Nikki, that means she will never be running for vice president. She will never be running for vice president. Remember that.
Another day, another instance of Donald Trump, who's busy broadcasting that his opponent is senile, broadcasting to the world that his brain may or may not be leaking out of his skull. Now, first of all, let me just say this at the top. I don't know what word Donald Trump thinks he's using, but interpose ain't it. Just a general rule of thumb, if you're gonna lecture people for apparently not being smart enough to keep up with you in your big brain, maybe make sure you're not using words that don't even make sense. Just, for starters. As for the point of all of this, you may have noticed that as of late, Donald Trump has had particular trouble differentiating between different political figures.
They were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding and imploding. And he said, it's very simple. He should immediately resign.
And now they're getting hit very hard by the North. And I'm really shocked that the Obama administration can be out there saying, I hope they don't attack from the North. Why are they doing that? How stupid a statement.
As you know, crooked Joe Biden and the radical left thugs who have weaponized law enforcement to arrest their leading political opponent, and leading by a lot, including Obama. I'll tell you what, you take a look at Obama and take a look at some of the things that he's done. This is the same thing. The country was very divided. And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won. We beat Hillary Clinton. Now, I used to call her Crooked Hillary. The opposing party president, if it's the opposing party, will indict the president for doing something that should have been good. Like Obama dropped missiles and they ended up hitting a kindergarten or a school or the apartment house. A lot of people were killed. Well, if that's the case, he's going to end up being indicted when he leaves office. He meant well. The missile went in the wrong direction. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. Nikki Haley, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that.
And this is a phenomenon that's become so obvious, you've got everyone from Nikki Haley on the right to Daniel Goldman on the left calling it out.
Last night, Trump is at a rally, and he's going on and on mentioning me multiple times as to why I didn't take security during the Capitol riots. Why I didn't handle January 6th better. I wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th. I wasn't in office then. They're saying he got confused, that he was talking about something else. He was talking about Nancy Pelosi. He mentioned me multiple times in that scenario. The concern I have is I'm not saying anything derogatory, but when you're dealing with the pressures of a presidency, we can't have someone else that we question whether they're mentally fit to do this. We can't.
Donald Trump is 77. If you listen to him speak, he is incoherent. He cannot put a coherent, sensible sentence together with any meaning. If you want to talk about age having an impact, look at Donald Trump. And that is the thing that is bewildering to me, that there's so much focus on Joe Biden's age. Donald Trump has really almost gone off the deep end. I mean, he is there with Rudy Giuliani now at this point, where it's conspiracy after conspiracy theory. There's no sense to anything that he says. It's pure grievances and revenge. And he clearly has lost his marbles and would be incapable of governing. And so I think that as this campaign moves forward, that paradox is going to become more and more apparent.
And look, the point of all of this is not just to take shots at Donald Trump, even though he makes it really easy to take shots at him. The point is to explain why we keep hearing this narrative that Joe Biden is in cognitive decline. It is to compensate for the fact that Donald Trump is falling apart before our very eyes. Joe Biden can trip over a sandbag one time in 2021, but Trump goes on a screed about how Nikki Haley was in charge of the Capitol on January 6th, and how Barack Obama is the current president, and how World War II hasn't happened yet, and how he actually won California, if not for fraud, and how the letters US for United States also spell the word us, and how he aced a dementia test that included correctly identifying an elephant. Trump does all of that, and it's crickets from the media. The right-wing media ecosystem can plainly see what's happening with Trump, and they know that if they don't get ahead of it with hysterical coverage about Joe Biden, that people will start to see Donald Trump for who he actually is. And clearly, that wouldn't do them any favors. There's another reason why it's so important for Republicans to hammer away at this narrative that Biden is incompetent. It is to try and erase the fact that his actual success far eclipses what Trump did with his time in office. Joe Biden is presiding over the strongest recovery in American history. He's added the most jobs of any president in the history of this country. Unemployment's been below 4% for the longest stretch in over 50 years. GDP is surging, wages are outpacing inflation, and consumer sentiment is skyrocketing with the quickest incline in decades. This is the economy that Republicans campaign on creating while failing to actually deliver. Add that to the list of legislative accomplishments: the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Package, the Gun Safety Law, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the Reauthorization of Violence Against Women Act, codifying marriage equality into federal law, forgiving billions of dollars of student loan debt, fortifying NATO amid Russia's war against Ukraine. Not only is Joe Biden a competent president, but he's managed the most progressive and successful presidency of our lifetimes, even turning Trump-era punchlines into actual legislative wins. Contrast that with what Donald Trump, whose only legislative achievement during his entire presidency was a tax cut that overwhelmingly favored billionaires and billionaires. He promised an infrastructure plan and never delivered. He promised a health care plan and never delivered. He promised a middle-class tax cut and never delivered. He promised record jobs and never delivered. He promised an extraordinary presidency, and he did give us that, just not in the way we expected, considering he lost the most jobs in modern American history. Historic? Yes. Successful? No. So if you're wondering why Donald Trump and his allies are so hell-bent on framing Biden as being in the throes of cognitive decline, this is why. It is nothing more than projection. They all recognize very clearly what Trump's principal weakness is, and so in order to neutralize that, they're working in overdrive to try and diffuse that weakness onto Biden. Per usual, every accusation is a confession. And look, the fact that the right is growing more and more desperate to shoehorn this narrative forward should tell us something. They all realize that the guy they're breathlessly defending is a rambling moron. They all realize that his grasp of basic concepts and facts and even words is tenuous at best. So they might think that they're helping him, but all it's doing is shining a spotlight on just how broken Donald Trump's brain actually is. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.